Now we're taking a ride out into the countryside. Right away you see the rice paddies and the water buffalo. They're grazing out there. These are the working animals that pull the plows during the day when they're farming. Passing more of the rice paddies, we're going out to a local village in the outskirts of Siem Reap. It's about 5 miles outside of town. A good way to get around in Cambodia is on a tuk-tuk. A little different than riding on the back of a motorcycle or in a regular taxi or in a bus. Here it's open air. It's like a jitney. They call it a tuk-tuk. Not expensive. And it'll take you all around the town and out to the sights if you like. And your driver can wait for you and then take you on to the next site and so on. You could hire them for half a day, approximately $5 an hour. That's a very good deal. You want to speak to the driver, of course, ahead of time and work out a fair price for everybody. And then take a ride through Siem Reap on a tuk-tuk. It might all seem very exotic to us, unusual tuk-tuk and old-fashioned buildings, but this is the daily way of life in Cambodia. Now, most tourists are not going to go out here and stop by and visit the village, but we are. Most tourists are just driving by on their way to see the monuments, the wonderful ancient temples of Angkor Wat. But we're going to hop out and meet some of the local people. Right away we run into a whole bunch of kids. They're out here working. They're selling their handicrafts. These are generally items that are made right in the village, perhaps by themselves or their relatives. And these are great little salespeople. Pretty hard to resist. They don't get that many customers here because most people drive on by, but the occasional bicyclist will stop, or the occasional interested tourist will stop. Okay, what's the village name?
Preăh Dák.
Yeah, the village. Nice village. So you're going to take me on a walk in your village? You can be my tour guides, okay? Be my tour guides in the village? So you all live in this village? Who understands English? Anybody speaks English? No? Okay, kids. And they're going to take me on a little walk through town. It's a rather simple village, but this is really typical of the way of life of about half the people of Cambodia. Some live in the cities or the larger towns. Phnom Penh is the main city, of course. Siem Reap is also considered a city, but the village life is much more traditional here in Cambodia. And right away we see they're pulling water out of a well. Now that tells us that there's no running water in these houses. They've got a few pumps and they've got a couple of wells, and then they haul the water in buckets into their home, put it on a shoulder stick and carry it home. Traditional way of life that's been going on here virtually for centuries. So we give the kids some gum. You share. You can share? You share. They're happy to get some treats. If you feel like it, certainly you want to buy some things from these kids. They are irresistible. Well, it's a way of life that is much different than that in the Western world. Cambodia, after all, is a relatively poor country. And yet these kids have got a promising future. It's going to be a different life for them, certainly, than their parents and their grandparents experienced. Cambodia went through difficult times way back from the mid-19th century when they were occupied by the French. Here's another example of a well, a pump bringing water up out of the well. And it's donated by the Angkor Clean Water Project. Relaxing under the houses, this is a very typical place to take a rest, take an afternoon nap, hang out with your baby. It's cooler under the house rather than inside the house, so you'll find hammocks and people out just taking a rest. We're here in the afternoon. The villagers were very welcoming. They didn't mind at all this tourist walking around through their property. And they're out to sell some goods if possible. Who could resist this little girl with her scarves? She's selling little scarves. Only a few dollars for some local hand-woven materials. And out here in the backyard we see there's a banana grove. They grow a variety of their vegetables, and of course they grow rice as the main staple crop. And they've got a few items for sale to the tourist if any tourist should happen to wander by in the little village. Now we come across the farmer with his water buffalo. These are the sturdy animals that will pull the plow through the rice paddies. About 80% of the people of Cambodia are still following agricultural lifestyle. They're primarily farmers. They might have a secondary job. They might be involved in the tourism industry as well, or working in a garment factory or in a shop. But the main occupation in the country is farming. And of course the main crop they're growing is rice. We see here one of the rice paddies. They'll bring the water in and irrigate the paddy, flood it as a ponded paddy field. There's some chickens running around here in this farm scene. And they'll get maybe one crop a year, sometimes two crops a year. Not usually a very intensive kind of rice cultivation, like some countries are able to get 3 crops, even 4 crops. That's really pushing it. And they store the rice right out here in the warehouses. Kids love to pose for photographs. Such friendly people. Really heartwarming to see. Some travelers have been known to sponsor a child in Cambodia. And you can certainly do that. You can contribute something like $300 a year and it could pay for their education. And of course there's ways you can find out about how to sponsor a child. Just go online and Google it. I'm sure you'll easily find out ways to help out with these kids. Oh, you're fast. Pedaling bicycles is one of the basic ways they'll get around. They're too young for motor scooters yet. Some more friendly ladies here. They're creating some kind of a sweet sugar concoction, eager to give us a free sample. And yes, it was sweet and tasty. The bicyclists coming by to have another look at this product, this little food snack. The people of Cambodia are getting by with agriculture, and tourism is becoming increasingly important, of course, to them now, as millions of visitors are coming in every year. Working in the rice fields is hard on the body. You're bent over and stooping all day harvesting. So the tourism industry offers a nice alternative. Building a new house, but in the traditional style up on stilts to keep it as cool as possible. Native woodwork here with a simple plane. There's some excellent trees they're able to harvest. About 70% of the country is forested. And some of these tropical hardwoods are really good for construction. He's building an addition to his house and doing most of the work himself. A couple of ducks walking around, and there's an old-fashioned wooden cart, an ox cart, still in use today, of course. Now here's how they get their electricity. That's right, it's car batteries all connected together and a big old pumping generator charging them up, which tells us that no, they do not have electricity running through the village as we would think of. It's all coming from car batteries and generators. And again, this is very typical. Here you can buy some alcohol. They refill a Scotch bottle with their own homemade alcohol in that shop. Massage in Southeast Asia is really an art form. Of course, Thailand, the neighboring country, is most famous for Thai massage, but the Cambodians also enjoy a good rub down. You can see these folks are very in tune with the natural environment. This young lady is building a chair. Handmade construction from scratch. Hammer and an axe and putting it together. Her little brother watching over things. And some water buffalo in the background. A very rustic and rural scene. She's not going out to Home Depot to get some supplies or going to the mall to buy a chair, but making it for herself. Well, the Cambodians really take good care of these animals because these are the creatures who are pulling the plows in the rice paddies. They're doing most of the work. They don't generally have machine plows to do the work for them in the rice paddies here in the simple local villages. It's manpower, muscle power, and animal power. Dropping in on an afternoon meal, rice and fish.
Is this the kitchen? Having lunch?
Typical sustenance here. Very simple surroundings and friendly folk. They don't mind saying hello while they're having lunch.
Rice and vegetables.
The per capita GDP, gross domestic product, here is about $2,000. That GDP is relatively low. It puts Cambodia in the lower ranks of nations of the world, something like 180th out of 220 countries. Most of the other poorest countries are in Africa. So these people really could use some help, and one way you can certainly consider helping is by visiting the country as a tourist. And when you come, buy something from the local vendors. There are so many great attractions to see, as we're showing you in the program at Angkor Wat and the great temples. But it's also fascinating to come and have a look at this village life, putting the rice they've harvested into some burlap sacks for storage. Mostly these are subsistence farmers. They're really not growing rice for export or for sale. Mostly it's for their own consumption. Cambodia is largely self-sufficient when it comes to food. And here's some examples of the native baskets and handicrafts that you can purchase in the village. Or get palm drink, like a coconut. That's one of their staple foods from the palm trees. And then moving along, we're back into the tuk-tuk and now driving past the village that we've just been enjoying the walk through. It's been quite an experience. Again, most tourists don't ever bother to get out of their bus or off their car to walk in the village, but you're most welcome to do it and bring a little money along and purchase some items from the kids while you're there. Maybe purchase some foods or some other little snacks and handicrafts and baskets. And that way you're contributing to that local economy and having a most authentic local experience while you're at it. Fortunately, my tuk-tuk driver walked with me through the village and acted as my ambassador and was able to translate for me and get permission to help take many of these photos.